Hello and welcome to Ticket Talks, and yes, it is time we spoke. First of all, I would like to acknowledge that this segment is being held on the traditional lands of the Wurundjeri Woi-wurrung people, and I pay my respects to elders both past, present and future. And I am joined, as always, by Director of Polaron Language Services, Eva Hussein, in studio. Hello and thank you again for joining me.
Hello, Mike.
What's been happening at Polaron this week? What have you been working on?
Lots of really interesting things, but today we wanted to showcase a project for our local council. Mm-hmm. So in Victoria, we've got about 80 of them, I think, and communicating with the local audiences or residents is really, really important. And we look at things like what languages we should translate into, what way we should translate things into. So often with the local councils, it's a really organic relationship where, some of it is predictable in terms of communication, but some of the pieces of content we produce with local councils will be driven by local events or something that's happening. So for example, last year we worked with one particular council that was really worried about refuse being built in people's backyards.
Yep.
I think it didn't eventuate, but in saying that, as I said, we work with a lot of them to produce communication that works for the local residents.
In the communities and such. Yeah, wonderful. So let's move on to miscommunication of the week. What have you found? What have you seen?
QR codes, mate, QR codes. You've been travelling a bit, Queensland, and
I've come across a couple of QR codes, yeah.
So you'd know that here in Victoria, they're compulsory. So anytime you walk into a premises, you need to,
do the little
however, in different states, we have seen law enforcement agencies kind of using it for not the purposes. So in other words, they access data, get it through QR codes to chase criminals. So you'd think, why not? Then on the other hand, where does it stop? What's the fine line between, how the data is used? So this is why I'm so excited to be talking to Elisa and Marta today, because one of the things people worry about is how our data is used, who owns it, where does it go, to what purpose it's used. And I think nowadays it's actually fair to say that we're not in charge of our own data. Anytime you go online, who knows what happens to it.
Absolutely.
And QR codes is one of those things that's quite new, and because the governments have made it compulsory here, we do need to comply, but to what end it's used is another story altogether.
Yeah, and the speed at which, the pandemic made these QR codes readily available and out there just meant that there wasn't maybe enough time to sort of check a few boxes.
Right, or to legislate in a way, or to protect it in such a way that we feel safe about how it's being used. But I think anytime you do anything electronic on your phone, on your computer, you're not in charge anymore. That's what I think. The cynical me.
The cynical you. Well, as we just touched on, data can be a highly useful tool. However, it can also lead to privacy breaches and whatnot. The hacking of information is a problem we've seen across the board. So big data seems unstoppable. So how can businesses use it for good? Or will it only create problems? Well, we're here talking to our guests today and how they can understand, or how we can unpack communication strategies and engage cold communities as well. So joining us is data science researcher and lecturer, Marta Stelmaszak Rosa, I had to write that one down, and founder and managing director of Maven Data, Elisa Choy. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
That's all right. So Marta, I'll start with you. We process over 2.5 trillion bytes of data every day, and you research and teach about data science and analytics. So tell us, what is this data phenomenon, and should we be more concerned about where it's going and what people are doing with it?
I think that's a great question, and definitely as a researcher, this is something that I am very aware of and interested in. And I think that I would like to start by saying that data as such is not new. We've been collecting it and using it probably for centuries, right? And we can think about some more traditional forms of data like census data or some other statistics-based data that were usually collected by professionals and used by mostly institutions to analyze and derive some kind of knowledge about what we do. So think about, for example, a passenger survey at the airport, right? I've taken a few. I'm sure that you experience these as well if you're traveling. You'd be approached by someone who is a member of an organization who is trained in conducting surveys at the airports. They have to ask specific questions, specific answers, and so on. That's data as well. However, what's different now is not just that we have more data, but it's a different kind of data. It's data that is captured automatically about what we do without trained human in between. And it's data about things that are not easily quantifiable, like our preferences, our moods, what we like, what we dislike. So contrast that example of the passenger survey that I gave earlier with you're at the airport, you're checking in on your social media saying, I'm here at the airport traveling to, given your destination, uploading a photo of you and your friends, what you're doing, what your plans are. That's the new kind of data. And that's data that quantifies what we do in a very different way. And I think that
we're giving it away freely as well, like you said in that example. It's just something we're encouraged to do. Elisa, you've recently launched Maven Pulse, which shares insightful commentary on the world issues. How's the public sentiment, online data and AI used to inform the work you guys and the team are doing?
Yes. So we're 100% correct. We are swimming in oceans and oceans of data. And most of this sits outside what we collect now. It's all on the internet. And so when we do research on public sentiment, we're actually analysing how people feel through the content and how they engage with content online, whether it's in websites, blogs, or social media, whether it's text or images or video, whether it's long-form articles or short burst video bursts. So for us, when we're understanding public sentiment, we now have the power of this immense data set called the internet and the power of technology called artificial intelligence. So specifically, we are now able to analyze what people deeply care about through how they engage online in the privacy of their own digital screens. So the traditional market research methods of a survey or asking people how they feel about something, all of a sudden, we're able to do this in an unbiased way, which allows us to make very accurate predictions about human behaviour in the future.
It's very interesting stuff when you start to break it down like that. So, Marta, I'll jump back to you. And Australia is obviously one of the most culturally, linguistically diverse places in the world. There's something like nearly 30% of us born overseas. So engaging that audience can be very challenging. How can data analytics be used to create strategies that maybe assist that space?
I think that there is a lot that can be done in this area because data analytics gives you a much more granular and that is much more detailed insights, and they can be linked across countries, languages, and cultures. And I think that there are three main ways in which data and analytics can support communication strategies. And the first one is better customer segmentation. So you're able to identify these segments of customers who may be from different cultural or linguistic backgrounds. Number two, you're able to build better and more detailed customer profiles based on the data that you're collecting about their preferences and their backgrounds. And you can also, number three, then design better targeted communication campaigns around this data.
Elisa, what have you seen in regards to the same question about how we can engage the multicultural communities?
This is actually the most exciting breakthrough with the ability to process language data. So we are now able to look at internet data, but in different languages. So all of a sudden, we're not going to be just looking at the English worldview of any public sentiment, like the vaccine, right? So in Australia, we're able to now do research on public sentiment for the major core communities. So be it Chinese Mandarin or Arabic or Spanish or Hindi, you know, in Australia, we consume information globally. So if you're sitting in a community which doesn't speak English as a first language, you'll be also engaging with content in your local language. We are now able to understand sentiment of these communities. And I think that's amazing for Australia.
Yeah, it's very exciting. Marta, I'll go back to you. What can go wrong when organisations aren't basing their communication plans on evidence-based strategy and data, and they're just jumping right in with what they think will work?
I think that it's very important that data is always used together with human judgment. And that goes both ways. So whenever we want to rely on data and analytics, we do need our human insights into how we use it, but it also works the other way around. So judgment needs to be based in and supported in data. Because otherwise, especially in the context of cultural and linguistic diversity, if we don't make decisions that are really rooted in data, we can open up our decisions and our actions to quite a lot of bias and simply misunderstanding of the communities that we're working with and that we're trying to target. So it's that can then, of course, have a knock-on effect on how we communicate and how we reach and how we're perceived by these communities.
So it's one thing to sort of look at the exciting parts of what the internet and this data can do, but data leaks, security breaches and hacking scandals are in the news daily. Here at Ticker, we're covering a lot of them. I'm wondering, and this is a question to either of you, should we be scared of this data and the way it's being tracked? Elisa, if you want to start, and then Marta, you can jump in as well.
Well, I've always had a very similar view to Marta in the sense that we've been surrounded by data forever. It's not data that is evil, or not. It's not technology that's evil. That data and technology don't commit crimes, whether it's hacking or cybersecurity issues. It's people that commit crimes. Just like guns don't kill people, people kill people with guns. So it's very important, as Marta said, that we always have the combination of human and machine together. I think together they amplify what we can do, but on our own, we can't. So that's my view. I don't think we need to be scared of data. We just need to make sure that we keep common sense close watch with human interaction and human judgment, because at the end of the day, it's a world of humans that we're working with, not a world of machines.
And Marta, over to you just on that security sort of fear.
To this, I would add that I have been researching data and data science and analytics for a number of years, and I still have my phone and I still go online. So I think that I've not seen anything there that scared me enough to go totally off the grid. So I don't think that we need to be scared. I think it's important that we're data aware. And by data aware, I mean conscious of what data is being collected about us, by whom, and to what ends. And from that consciousness and that awareness, we're in a much better place to control and to take decisions about how this data about us is used. And that removes a lot of the fear and puts us more firmly in charge of the data.
Fantastic. Marta, Stelmaszak, Rosa, and Elisa Choy, thank you so much for joining. I'm going to work on my Polish names. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.
All right. Eva, let's just talk briefly, very quickly about what we discussed today on the program and what we've unpacked.
It sounds like data is a friend, not a foe. What's potentially a foe is how it's used and how we may not understand to what end it's being used. I think ethical considerations and also how I guess our governments and also big corporations manage the data that we put in is something that we need to think about. And I think there are lots of initiatives and education about how that can be managed. And many of the organizations that I use, let's say Facebook, now do have, kind of put in charge. Like, I'm still a bit cynical, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
However, I think we are more conscious and we understand more about what can happen. So I think when it comes to communication with multicultural audiences, there's a lot to be done because, as both of our guest speakers have succinctly said, to be able to reach them well makes for good outcomes for those communities.
Yeah, no, that was very great to have those two on there and very well put by you. Guys, of course, if you have any questions about how to reach your multicultural audiences, get in touch with the team at Polaron. Contact details are on the screen. I'm Mike Loader. That's been Ticket Talks for this week, and I look forward to seeing you next time.